Accused. Court hearing Reiner Fuellmich, Goettingen, 2nd of February 24, by Goettingen. It's a big moment for me. For the first time in my life, I'm entering a courtroom. No, not as a participant in the proceedings, just as a spectator, and of course, as a supporter of the defendant. I'm pleasantly surprised. Although there are strict controls at the entrance, although they check whether I have any weapons on me, although they take everything I have on me, apart from a notebook and a pen. The staff show that they are not brutes and can also be friendly. Sometimes they even turn a blind eye, but more of that later. The room is not very big. Everything is quite close together. But this is a good thing, because even as a spectator, you feel as if you're right in the middle of the action. It's also not as gloomy as I imagined. A large window front lets in plenty of light, and fresh air is also provided. At one end of the room are the tables where the participants will be seated. On one side, the defendant is the defense lawyer. On the other side are the name tags with the names of the two plaintiffs. It will remain relatively empty there, as only the prosecutor will appear from the side of the plaintiffs. Only separated from the trial area by a low wall are the 3 rows of spectator seats. They are arranged in ascending order so that everyone has a good view of the proceedings. I'm very pleased that almost all the spectator seats are occupied. This means that the relatively high level of support for the defendant among the public can always be seen and experienced by those conducting the trial. Today we are dealing with the further questioning of the accused, which was not concluded at the first hearing. I am very surprised, and again pleasantly so. The conversation between the judge and the defendant are conducted as equals. It doesn't sound at all like how you would imagine the questioning of a man who has been in prison for almost 4 months. Sometimes you even get the impression that they are sitting together as confidants, one of whom is telling anecdotes from his life. Yes, the defendant tells many anecdotes from his life, but this is not because he is so talkative and likes to divulge secrets, but rather because the story that has to be told here, that is finally allowed to be told, is an extremely complicated and mysterious one that leaves your mouth hanging open, that makes you laugh and cry and wonder, and that brings up completely different feelings in the listeners. Feelings like dismay, disbelief, and perhaps even anger. Anger at a group of people who seem to have conspired to ruin another person, to ruin them in every way. There's no other way to put it. The most emotional, almost heartbreaking part is what the defendant says when the judge asks him about his financial situation and mentions his wife. It becomes clear that he's only worried about her, not at all about himself. Yet he is actually the one who has to carry the biggest, almost unbearable burden. At first he describes her as follows. She's very clever, and she's very reserved. She's a little angel. Then comes the decisive, thoroughly accusatory sentence, addressed above all to the prosecutor, who is sitting there and who is responsible for everything. And she's severely damaged by this. So as not to give the wrong impression, this is by no means a fairy tale lesson. It's not as if the defendant is just chatting or telling stories. He has several folders with him, which he's very familiar with, so he can back up everything he says. I stay in my seat during the short break. The defendant is also allowed to stay in the room and is not taken to his uncomfortable waiting cell in the basement. A thought occurs to me. Now would actually be the opportunity to ask him the question that has been on my mind for a long time. When would the story that he had started to tell the public finally be continued? The story about what had happened to him in the Corona Committee and in the time that followed. There was still so much that remained mysterious and for which I would have liked an explanation. When I asked whether I was allowed to speak to the accused, the employee replied in the negative. But the person concerned, who is well versed in the law, intervenes and says that he's allowed to speak to visitors. So I dare to ask my question. During the short conversation, I realize that the defendant could go on and on with stories, all of them stories that incriminate the complainants and people associated with them. Well, the trial has only just begun. In any case, the entertainment value is already very high, and you can guess what dimensions it could take on. In conclusion, I can say that I'm very happy to have taken the 1.5 hour drive to be able to attend the trial live. And this was definitely not my last visit to the beautiful city of Goettingen. The most exciting part is yet to come, the hearing of the complainants who have not yet made an appearance. Then the guesswork about their deeper motives can begin, because this is certainly the first time in history that critical people have come together in a government independent investigative committee to work together to shed light on the situation, only to be dragged to court afterwards for relatively trivial matters compared to the crimes they actually wanted to solve. But everything has its purpose in life. Something good will also come out of it. Let us not forget. Gods are waves and wind, but sails and helm, that you reach the harbour, are yours. The fact that Reiner Fuellmich is able to navigate his personal ship safely through high waves and strong storms like no other has probably become clear to us all in the last few years in which we have been able to follow his work. He is a kind of modern hero, as the attention his case has received around the world shows. I hope that he makes it safely to port very soon, that he can resume his normal life as quickly as possible, and that he can embrace his wife. He certainly has the skills to set the sails correctly and to handle the helm sensitively. May the strong winds that have caught him and would have blown someone else over have a beneficial effect. We will all benefit from it. Sing, birdies, sing. That's better. Thank you for watching.